When I went to the University of Montana, that was in 1962, we already knew that congressionally there was some talk by Dr. Sergeant Shriver in promoting the development of a Peace Corps overseas. It was pretty sketchy. We didn't really know. It's not like we were following. It was a piece of legislation that was going through Congress. But as it became more clear and that was approved under President Kennedy, and we knew more about it, then the information came out that the applications would be available in the fall of 1962. So we found out about it through the standard news media and that sort of thing. And in 1962, going into 1963, I was completing my Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and History, pre-law, at the University of Montana. And so instead of going on to law school, I said, you know, this is what I've always wanted to do. This is sort of an adventure. That's all I could say. And so I went down and filled out the forms, and then they contacted us and said, you know, we would like to invite you to be a Peace Corps volunteer. And then there was a series of medical tests. And then in June 10th of 63, they had mailed me the airline tickets on Continental Airlines to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that's when I left Montana. And that's where we went for our Peace Corps training. You might consider it sort of similar to boot camp in the military. 13 weeks, and then you go through an education process, language, 5 hours a day, area studies, culture of Latin America, different countries. And I will say that they gave you a choice on your forms when you fill out the application. Where would you like to serve in the world? And I said Latin America, and I said I want to be in the most tropical, hot area on the planet, because I grew up in North Dakota, in Montana, you know, 30 below zero. And so that's where they decided I would go, and that's where the training was. So there was about 50 to 70 volunteers. I couldn't tell you exactly the number. And there were men and women in the group, mostly just out of college, some in their late 20s, a few in their middle ages, maybe 30s and their 40s, a couple couples. Mostly kids just out of college. And I had studied Spanish for a couple of years at the university, and then the training went on for 13 weeks, and fundamentally the training was about, at that time in the 60s, in the early parts of the Peace Corps, the emphasis was on your capability of enduring. Endurance training involved calisthenics, running, hiking. We would do 20 and 25-mile hikes in the northern New Mexico mountains. In groups, we would be staying overnight in tents. We'd have long trail hikes during the day. And no matter what we were doing in class or in endurance hikes, we always had what we would call supervisors who would be, we understood they might be taking notes on how we're doing and whether we're lagging behind and keeping up and how we interrelated with other volunteers and that sort of thing. So we understood it was sort of like a challenge to get through this boot camp, more or less. So it was a challenge.